So we're on to issue 19 of the magazine, which is the Mickey and Minnie flower patch. We're going to be making 9 of these little squares and then sewing them together. There is a few differences in the pattern to what I have done, mainly just one actually at the moment I can think of the top of my head, and all that is, and I'll obviously tell you as we go around, but these 3 corners, you can see there's only tiny little holes there because they've chained 1, but then on the final corner they're chaining 2, which creates this massive gap and makes it look completely different to the rest of the corners, and I don't like that. So I've changed that just to chain 1 on every corner, and they look so much better. So it's not 9 different colours that we're going to be using for the centres, because there are a couple that there are 2 of. So we've got yarn A, which is the periwinkle, and then we've got yarn B, which is the candy pink, the C, which is the sunflower, which we will be doing 2 in the sunflower. Yarn D is the coral, which looks kind of orange on the screen, but I can assure you it is actually coral. Yarn E is the bright red. Again, we're doing 2 of this one. Yarn F over here is the cyan. Yarn G is the vanilla, and then we've got the white for the outside of the centres of the squares that we're doing. So we're doing 2 of the bright red and 2 of the sunflower. You can start on whichever one you want. I've actually made all mine already, and that's how I was able to show you this one. Well, I've just got the one more to go, which I've left so I can film this video. They take ages, I'm not going to lie. They take a long time. So that's why it's taken me. I wanted to film this video a few days ago, but I just wanted to get them all out of the way before I filmed, so then I can just film putting them all together all in one go. And they've taken me a good 48 hours worth of evening TV to make sure they're all done. We're using our 4mm hook. You will need to have a slightly tighter tension in this one, and I say that because we don't want the squares to be too big, because otherwise the whole square is going to be a lot bigger than the rest of the ones that we've done. So if you want to change down to a 3mm hook, you can. That is an option. Otherwise, I can show you some other adjustments along the way of things that you can do to make sure that your squares aren't too big, and then we won't have a giant square when we finished it. So I've just got the one colour left to go, which is the cyan one, so I'm going to be using that one. So if you create a slip knot on your hook for the colour that you're going to be using, and we'll carry on from there. So we're going to be creating several different puff stitches to make our flower, so I will show you how to do that, but to begin with we're chaining 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. We're then going to do a slip stitch into the first chain that we've made to create a circle. From here we want to chain 2. 1 and 2. We're then going to create our first puff stitch. So to do that, we want to yarn over, and we want to go in through this hole which is in the centre of our stitches, which we have done before. We don't want to pull this too tight, because essentially the height at which we pull that stitch up to is how long that puff stitch is going to be. Now I feel this is going to sound quite complicated, but I feel I should explain as well for those who will understand. In the book it's telling us, well, we've just done those first 2 chains, it's telling us to pull this loop that we've just made to the same height as the 2 chains that we've made. So essentially it would look like that. The problem is, if we make them that big, this centre flower is going to be huge, and it will just end up that the whole square that we make is massive. So I would estimate that to be about 1.5 centimeters. We don't want them to be that big. So if I start that again, so I'm yarning over, I'm going in through the centre and I'm pulling up a loop. Now don't pull it tight, but you don't want it to pull it to the full height of those 2 chains either. So I'd say mine is about, I don't know, 8mm maybe, not quite 1 centimetre. We're then going to yarn over again, go back in to that centre loop and pull up another loop, and then pull on your hook and with your thumb and finger on the bottom of those stitches so that they are the same height as the last loop that you've just made. We're then going to do that once more. Yarn over, back in through that loop and pull up another loop and pull. We want all those stitches to be the same height. I'm then going to pass the centre of my initial chains that I had in between my thumb and my middle finger on my right hand, so I can pull that one down on there. We're then yarning over, I'm then passing back between these 2 fingers, still pulling down, and make sure you pull down because otherwise you won't be able to pull this one through all of the stitches. You want to pull that one through all of them so you end up with something that looks like that. And we've done our first puff stitch. We're then going to chain 2. So remember, just with that first puff stitch, we're yarning over and going through the centre 3 times. For every other stitch that we're doing now, we're going to do it 4 times. And I'll show you now. So yarn over, go in through, pull up a loop. Now this time you want to make sure that they're the same height as the ones that you've just made. I think mine's a bit big, so I'm making it a bit tighter. I would say around there. Second time I'm then yarning over, going through and pulling up a loop. And remember, this time is where you can pull as much as you want because you've already made that first loop, so it's not going to go any further than that. So the second time you want to make sure that you pull as much as you can so that it matches the height of the first loop that you've just made. So I'm now doing it for the 3rd time. Again, pull on your hook, pull on the base of these stitches just to make sure it's the right size. And this is the 4th one. Pulling again. You have to pull quite forcefully as well. I'm passing those stitches over and I'm yarning over, passing the chain stitches back, and now I can pull down between my thumb and my index finger, and I'm pulling up on the hook as well, and then I'm pulling all of those stitches, or that loop through all of those stitches, and now I've created 2. And I can chain 2 more. I'll do that once more on camera. So yarn over and go through your loop, pull up a stitch, yarn over, pull so it's the same height, that's my second one, yarn over, pull, that's my 3rd one, yarn over, pull, there's my 4th, and then yarning over and pulling through all of them, chain 2. So I've created 3 so far, and then what we can do is we can pull them round so they're closer together, which gives us the room to do them, all of the ones that we need to do around that loop. The magazine will tell you under instruction of round 1 exactly how many you need to do to fill this centre circle. I will meet you at the end and tell you how to join it together. So I've just done my last petal and we need to chain 2 to finish that one off. Now these stitches here are our initial 3 chains. that we did at the start of the row. So we just want to slip stitch into the 3rd chain. And there's that one finish off. So we can actually fasten this one off now. So remember to cut your yarn and just fasten that one off. And then I'll show you how to join on the white. Now at this point, just as a tip, although I haven't cut them yet, I have already sort of threaded in both of those ends and they are ready for cutting. And that is purely because they completely get in the way, because they're actually on like the edge of the circle, which is where we want to crochet now. So if they're on the edge, they do tend to get in the way. So I have just, you can see it's under my puff stitch, I've just threaded that one through a few times just so it's more in the center. I'm not going to cut mine yet because, as you know, I glue mine, and if I glue them now, then I'll have to come back to the video later. So I'm just going to leave it like that for now, and I'm going to attach the white. So we need to join our white to any of the 2 chain spaces, and by that it means where you've got your petal here, you'll notice that you've got like the line at the top, and those are the 2 chains we did. So we've got another puff stitch there and then a 2 chain space here. So join the white in between any of those gaps between the puff stitches. So I'm putting my hook through and pulling up on that white. I'm then going to chain 3. Just trying to get my working yarn. There we go. So 1, 2 and 3. We're then going to do a treble into the same space. So yarn over and in through that gap and pull up a loop. Yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. We're now going to go into our next 2 chain space and do 2 half trebles. So yarn over into that gap and pull up a loop. So you've got 3 on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3, and we've done our first half treble. We need to do another one into the same space. And now we're moving on to our next 2 chain space, and here we're going to do 2 trebles, 1 chain, 2 trebles. So yarn over into the next space and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, 1 more of those trebles, we now need to chain 1, and then we're going to do 2 more trebles into the same space because we're creating the corner of our square. 1 and 2. Into the next space we're doing 2 half trebles again. So pull through all 3, then yarn over, back in, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. And now we're going to do the next corner. So it's 2 trebles, 1 chain, 2 trebles. So 1 treble, 2 treble, 1 chain, 1 treble, 1 treble. Into the next space we're doing 2 half trebles, 1 and 2, and then we're back to a corner, so we're doing 2 trebles, 1 chain, 2 trebles. So 1, 2, 1 chain, 1, and 2, 2 half trebles into your next space, and this will be the last 2 half trebles that we're doing. So there's 1 and 2, and now we're back round to our final corner. So we're doing 2 trebles into that same space where we've already got stitches. So 1 and 2, and here's where I described at the beginning about the chain stitches. As we've gone round, in each corner we've done 2 trebles, 1 chain, 2 trebles. In the next corner, 2 trebles, 1 chain, 2 trebles. In this one, 2 trebles, 1 chain, 2 trebles. Now for this one at the moment, we've got 2 trebles on this side and we've got 2 trebles on this side, so we just need to join it with a chain stitch in the middle. In the book it tells us to do 2 chains, but as I said at the start of the video, that's what's creating this massive gap here that I can put my finger through. But because we've only done 1 chain in every other corner, there's only a tiny little hole. So it's completely up to you how you want to do it. If you want to do the 2 chains like the book says, then go ahead, but it will leave you with a gap on one corner. I'm going to do exactly the same as what we've done on every other corner and just finish with a 1 chain. That's all it needs. And then you need to go, obviously we did 3 chains at the, did we do 3 chains or was it 2? Yes, we did 3 chains. So we need to go into the top of the 3rd chain here and finish with a slip stitch. So I'm just pulling that one through. And there's that one done. So they're quite simple, and I'd say they're quite quick to crochet on their own. That isn't the issue. It's the fact that you're now left with 4 ends that you've got to sew in. And obviously as there's 9 of them, that means 36 ends that you've got to deal with, which is a bit of a pain. So I'm going to go off, I'm going to sew in my ends, I'm going to glue my ends. Sadly I'm going to have to wait till they've dried, and once they've done that I will come back and show you how to sew them all together. So once you've finished crocheting all your squares, they will look like this, and of course they're all still individual at the moment. I'm going to show you how to sew them together now. I've laid them out in the order in which they have shown in the magazine, purely because they give you instructions on how to sew them a particular way. So I've just put them out in front of me in order just to help make sense a bit more, and I've threaded my needle with some white yarn, and I will go ahead and show you how to do that now. So it says to begin with to pick up your vanilla square, which you will have put in the bottom right hand corner when you laid them out, and then you need to join your needle and your thread to your top right corner. So I'm just going to go up through that one and pull it through, and I'm actually going to tie it to secure it. So I've tied that one on, it's all secure and in place, and we're going to join it to the bright red square, which was just above it when we had them all laid out. So we want to make sure that edge comes out at a point of a corner, because you can see at the moment they actually, I'll move that so you can see it, they're actually quite rounded, and obviously we want to end up with a square. So you want to almost pull down on that corner there and make sure that that one's joined to that corner, like we did with the last, what square was it? Was it a Jungle Book square where we joined 4 squares together? We just need to make sure that we're joining those corners together. So it's asking us to over sew these. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back under of the corner space of the vanilla and pull that one through. Just make sure I don't get my non-working yarn mixed in. There we go. And then I'm going to go up to the first corner, the bottom right corner of the bright red, and those are joined together. And then I'm going to go back in through the actual stitch. Can you see I'm going in through the stitch now? And then go in through the stitch there of the bright red as well. So now we can move on to picking up both these, and we're going to pick up both these of the vanilla, and then opposite it we want to pick up both these of the bright red above it. and then we want to move on to the next stitch along. So I've got both V's there and both V's again, and we just want to continue doing that all along. Nearly at the end now. Get my V there, and for that one. And I'm now at the opposite corner. So make sure you're getting the last V's of that corner. Even though it is curved down, that is still the corner space because you've got that gap there. So make sure that you get that one. And go into your opposite corner for your bright red and pull that one tight. So there's the first V together, and as you can see, even though there is a slight dip here, that will stretch out. When we block it, we have managed to get rid of most of, you know, it's still quite curved there. That is quite straight there now, so we've managed to get rid of that. In the book, they've made it quite complicated with how they've worded it, because it sounds like we now need to cut our yarn and to sew them all individually. We don't. So at the moment we're at the top here, and our next action would be to go to the one below, and the one below, which will be the one to the left of the vanilla, is the cyan. So we want this one here. So what we want to do is we want to find the fullymost corner stitch of this one, which is this point here. It's the chain that we've done, and go up through that one. And here's where you need more than one pair of hands. So we've joined to that one. And now I'm going to go back into the red just to make it more secure. I'm pulling that one tight. So now the cyan is joined on as well. The one above the cyan, what was the one above the cyan? Is it the coral? Yeah, sorry about that. It's quite dark colours in the book. I couldn't quite work out what it was. So we want the coral to join in here. So again, make sure you pull that one out and find where you've done your one chain, which will be here. And then we can pull that one. And we've tightened that one in. From here, I'm going back into that same stitch that I've just done on the cyan, and then back through the coral again of the corner, just to secure it. And pull that one tight, and then those are joined together as well now. And now I can continue to do what I was doing before, where I was picking up the V there. And I want to pick up that V there. And we can go all the way along in the same manner. I'm going to go to the end of that one now, and I'll be back with you to join on the next two. So I've joined all the way along for that one as well now, and so we've got the 4 squares joined together, but they're quite loose in the middle, and they will be until we go down through those stitches, which is absolutely fine at the moment. So now we need to join on in the same way. We've got another red that's going to go on here, and then a sunflower above it. Join it exactly the same way as you've just done those two. Go all the way along to the end, and then you can fasten off, and then I'll pick up with you from there. So there's my first 6 joined together. As you can see, there's a line going all the way along, and I've fastened it off at the end. We now need to join the last 3 squares in exactly the same way, starting off at the top right on the bright red here, and we're going to join it to the other sunflower, and then adding in the candy pink in the middle and the periwinkle on the end. When you've got all the way along and you've fastened off at the end, I will join you again and show you where to go from there. So I finished my 2 lines. I've got a line along here and a line along here, but it does mean that we have got gaps here. There's a gap here and a gap here, and again on the bottom. So what we need to do now is the exact same thing. We're turning our square once, and you want to join again on the right and go all the way along here, and then join again here and go all the way along to that end. And then once we've done that, our squares will be secure, and then we can work on the border. So there's my square. Now it's all sewn together. We've got no more gaps in between any of the squares. So now we need to crochet our border. So what you need to do is grab your white and join it to any of your corner spaces. So once you've joined that white, we need to chain 1. And then we're doing a double crochet into that corner, not into the stitch, just into the corner. Once you've done that, we're doing a double crochet into each of the next 7 stitches. So count along and make sure you've got 7 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I've got 7 going into that corner. So my first one is just here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 is just in here. Now it's asked us to double crochet 2 together to keep our tension correct. I don't quite sure what that means, but we can do it anyway. Now I'm going into the corner space and not stitch. I'm going to hold that end out of the way not to confuse you, and I've pulled up a loop. I'm then going into the corner space of the next square and pulling up a loop again. We can then yarn over and pull through all 3, and that will help us to create a straight edge. So now we're on to the next square, and we can do our next 7 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't appear to have 7 here, obviously the way I've sewn it, so I'm going to go into that same stitch twice just to make sure I've got enough stitches for my border. So now I'm going into the corner space and pulling up a loop, and then doing the same thing on the other side, because we're going to do the double crochet 2 together again. And then carrying on, we should have another 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to do 2 in my last stitch again to make sure that I've got the 7. And now we've come to the corner space. In the corner space, we're going to do 1 double crochet, and then 2 chains, and then another 1 double crochet. Now you need to carry on doing that border pattern all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end. So I'm at my final corner. I've gone all the way around, and I've just done 7 double crochets from here to here. and we're at the final corner. So we just want to do 1 double crochet into the corner space, then we're going to chain 2, and from here we need to join with a slip stitch into the first double crochet and then fasten off. So find your first double crochet, which is the one at the start there. I'm just going to go in through that one and do a slip stitch, and there, we're all done. So that is the final square. Yes, there are dips on the side, but I'm hoping once that one's blocked it will look much better. And so that is the end of the Mickey and Minnie flower patch from issue 19. Please subscribe if you haven't just yet, because you'll get notifications of when the new videos come out. And if you could leave me a like and a comment, I'd love to hear from you. See you in number 20.